Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the MoBaseballAndTraining podcast. My name is Eric Mojica, your host for the show. And so, in today's episode, I just want to share with you guys a little bit about MoBaseballAndTraining and how the blog and podcast all came about, and also share with you guys a little bit about my baseball background, both as a player and now as a coach, and just also talk about my personal training and strength and conditioning philosophies and what I do and what the whole purpose of MoBaseballAndTraining is. And so, to kick things off, I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco in Mexico, and grew up most of my life in Paris, California, and just grew up from a really young age knowing that all I wanted to do is play professional baseball and nothing else. And, just grew up playing in Little League and Pony League, and eventually found myself in the travel ball world. And through high school and into college, just played my heart out and did what I loved. And in that process, discovered a lot about training and strength and conditioning, and started off by just kind of reading blogs and doing my own thing, and then eventually working with strength and conditioning coaches, and eventually just graduating and learning more about the whole field, and getting to do internships and interviewing people, and just getting to talk to a lot of amazing people that have taught me a lot of things. And that's where I'm at with this MoBaseballAndTraining LLC now. And it's about being able to just train athletes, being able to train the general population, being able to put out some blogs that give you some information, being able to put out some podcasts and bring on some amazing guests that can give you guys some insight on what they do and how to approach developing young athletes or professional athletes. And so the purpose of this is, if you're a young athlete, just to be able to learn from other people and learn how to apply a little bit better practices into your development. For other trainers and other therapists that are into the career now and want to learn a little bit more from other people, just to give you guys some insight on other people's perspectives and what they do. If you're a coach or you're a parent coaching Little League or travel ball, or if you're in the upper levels of high school, college, pro, just being able to maybe learn from some other great people that are doing it in the higher levels, and just take some ideas, steal some ideas, and apply some different concepts to what you do in developing your athletes. That's what this whole show is about. And on top of that too, with what we do with our social media, just putting out questions for us and being able to answer your guys' questions, and telling us, like, hey, I heard about this, and what do you think of this? Let us, whether if it's myself or one of the guests that I have on the show, just kind of give you some insight on what we think and what we've seen with people that we got to work with. And so it's all about putting out free information. And one of my biggest influences with that is Eric Cressy, who's one of the best out there as far as developing baseball players through his therapy and strength and conditioning background. And I learned a lot from him, and just reading blogs and watching his videos. And as I got through college, just kind of learning from other trainers. And I'm a big fan of using the internet to learn things. I'm not a very good book reader, but I'm really good with podcasts and just kind of looking up videos on Twitter and seeing what people are doing, whether if it's a little video or they put out a little quote of their philosophy, and then just having conversations with other great people and just trying to figure out where should I take this player and what should I do with them, and that's just a really fun job for what I do, and it's not just with athletes but also the general population, and I'll get into that a little bit later on in this episode. But I sound like a broken record with this, but I say this all the time on my blogs and on social media and whatnot. But I have zero regrets with my baseball career, but there are millions of things that I wish I could have done differently had I known then what I know now. And one of the biggest things is just what I did with my strength and conditioning and with my development as far as velocity as a pitcher. And so it all kind of started when I was about maybe 14, 15 years old, and just asking my parents, hey, can you give me a gym membership and just drop me off and let me work out for an hour and just work on some things, because I want to get bigger, faster, stronger, because I'm 5'7" and everyone is passing me up and getting bigger and faster and stronger, and I just can't keep up with them, and I want to get better, and that's all I wanted. And so my parents made that happen for me. And like I mentioned, just reading blogs from Eric Cressy and using the internet, using YouTube and other websites. I think stack.com was one of the ones I used all the time, watching workouts from other athletes, and just started to apply it to my own training, and didn't know really what I was doing, but I just started experimenting with form and trying to figure out how to get stronger and start pushing more weight and doing all these crazy box jumps and plyometric drills, jumping over hurdles and slamming medicine balls and doing burpees and, you name it, just all these fun exercises. And, it helped me a lot as far as developing myself as an athlete, because I did get stronger, I did get faster, I did develop some kind of explosiveness to jump a little bit higher and improve my conditioning overall. And over the years, I never really developed my velocity, and I've always kind of stayed stagnant where I was, maxing out at 80 miles an hour probably. And so once I got to college, my freshman year, we still didn't have a strength coach there, but I still worked out, and I got to work out with all the upperclassmen and, just picking their brains on what they're doing and why they're doing it, and sometimes following them in their workout and just doing it with them, or we challenge each other to do a certain exercise and, pushing a plate along the track, or, trying to squat a certain amount of weight in a certain rep scheme, whatever it was. Definitely continued to develop with my strength, and found myself being about 180 pounds and being able to squat above 250, touching 300 pounds every once in a while with ugly form. But then my sophomore year, that's when Coach C came to the picture. We had a strength and conditioning coach finally, and he started to really dissect what we were doing, and especially someone like me who was just an addict of lifting weights and always wanted to learn more, know more, and found myself figuring out that a lot of what I was doing was wrong, whether if it was the form of my lifts or if it was my approach to doing X amount of sets or X amount of repetitions and what the goal for my training was. He really helped me define all those things over the years. And so Coach C is one of the biggest influences, and I got to do an internship with him and just getting to train some athletes at Avila and just, picking his brain and trying to learn some new things about training. And now where I take a step back and try to dissect everything that I did from my 14-year-old beginnings as a weightlifter all the way through my senior year of college, I wish I would have known more about just basic movement patterns, understanding how to squat, how to lunge properly, how to do a good and proper push-up, how to do a pull-up, all those different things that I always kind of took for granted because I just jumped at it and just started doing it. And if my form was kind of ugly, I just figured I'd just keep practicing and eventually get stronger. My form will clean up over time. And that's not always the case. And that varies from person to person, because some people are just freak athletes and they're born with some amazing ability to be able to pull their body weight or being able to just coordinate through certain movement patterns. But when it comes to balance and coordination and things like that, those are very malleable things that we can always work with. And sometimes when we jump too far ahead by doing box jumps or trying to do power cleans, trying to do these explosive push-ups where we're pushing our body off the ground and coming back down, whatever it is that you're doing, you're more than likely that you're gonna develop and get stronger and develop some kind of fast twitch fibers and get a little bit faster and more explosive. But what's also important is understanding, can you have good control of your body and be able to move through a certain sequence that activates the right muscle group. So for example, if you're doing push-ups and you're doing a ton of them and you're always feeling that tension kind of build up around your shoulders, and maybe you feel a little bit of pec, but you're feeling a lot in your shoulders, a very simple change of position to where our arms are and where our hands are can have a huge effect on activating a lot more pec. And so that is the goal anyways of a push-up, is to work our pec muscles, and secondary is to work our shoulders and our triceps. And so that's not to say that if you feel anything here, it's not a good thing, but you should feel a very high percentage of what you're doing up in this area. Same thing goes for squats or a deadlift. If you're feeling nothing but your quads, great. We're going to get our quads strong and we're able to push a lot of weight up and down, and that's awesome. But if you're not feeling your glutes, you're not feeling like your hamstrings are getting involved, helping you stabilize through the movement and get up and down, you might be missing out on the entire benefit of the amount of weight that you're pushing up and down. And you might find it that once you start to work on that form and try to perfect it, all of a sudden you might not be as strong as you thought you were, because now those muscles that you never worked before are having to catch up. And that's not a bad thing, because that means that we're starting to develop those muscle groups. And so I just always encourage everybody that I work with to just ask why and how. You should ask that for everything. Why is this working? Why am I doing this? Why is this going to make me a better athlete? Why is this going to make me better at moving? How is this affecting my body? How Is this going to make me increase my velocity? So forth. Ask the why and the how, and ask it over and over and over. Any great coach, any great trainer will always be more than happy to answer those questions for you, and should be able to. And if they cannot have an answer, they will say, I don't know, let's find out. Or I don't know, I need to research this a little more and maybe give you a better answer. There's always an answer to everything. And that's one of the biggest things that I learned from Coach C during my internship is, can you justify the exercise? Can you justify the program? Can you justify what you're doing and what you're trying to affect? What is the goal? And what are we trying to accomplish with this? If you do not have an answer for that, whether if you're training somebody or if you are working out by yourself, if you do not have an answer for that, you need to figure out why. And it's not to say that you're always wrong with what you're doing, or what you're doing is the wrong approach, but it's just have a deeper understanding for what you're doing, because when you have that, you're taking yourself into a place where you're learning, and you are starting to ingrain certain movement patterns and certain muscle activation and certain movements that will translate to performance and whatever you want to do. So a lunge for me is one of the most important things for any baseball pitcher. You need to be able to lunge with good form, having a good hip alignment, being able to activate the right muscle groups, not feeling any tension build up in your feet or in your knees. You should be at the right angle. What I always bias is about 90-degree bend. So if you're doing a lunge, your knee should be somewhat here and never this far down, because when we start to come up, we start to put a lot of pressure onto that knee joint up here. And so when you think about pitching mechanics, well, you are striding into a lunge. You're getting one foot out in front, you're pushing off your backside, and you're trying to load your body to be able to explode forward and release the ball. Well, if you're not capable of absorbing a lot of amount of force, you might be losing on a couple different things. You might lose some velocity because you're not able to transfer that energy through the kinetic chain. You might not be able to stabilize your pelvis very well, and now when you rotate, it forces most of that momentum to start to come from the arm. And then you can start to have some shoulder pain or elbow pain, because now you're putting a lot of valgus force down here, or you're just not very stable around this entire thoracic region with your shoulder when you are coming to external rotation into internal. So there's a number of different things that varies from person to person and where their weaknesses are. And that's what my goal is from a training standpoint, is trying to figure out what are your biggest flaws in movement. I'm not trying to get you to squat 300, 400 pounds. We'll eventually get there, and if you're capable of it, cool, we'll train and we'll work on that. But what's more important for me, and this is just my bias, is let's become really great at moving. And before we start to worry about how much we can load you through these movement patterns, let's just become really good at having good control, good coordination, good balance with whatever we're doing, whether if it's a bilateral or unilateral movement. If we're doing any kind of push or pull, one-sided or with both sides, it doesn't matter. Just understanding where are your flaws and how can we improve it. And so I take that same approach, whether if I'm working with an athlete or if I'm working with just a general personal training client. So something that I learned with a guest that I had on the Kane Chats podcast, Justin Magallanes, who works with MLB, NFL, I think he works with MMA fighters and soccer, you name it, he works with everyone. He's really awesome, and he just kind of taught me about his training philosophy and how simple, easy, and effective is just the best model to have, because you should be able to train a 10-year-old the same way that you would train a major league superstar, or if you were to train a 30-year-old who just works a fine desk job and just wants to get in shape and be in better shape to be able to play with his kids or whatever. And then the same thing for the far end of that other spectrum of an 85-year-old who is not on a walker, but they have terrible posture and they're trying to just become a better mover because they want to just live longer and be there for their grandkids or whatever other things they want to accomplish in life, play golf, travel, whatever it is. We can take the same approach for a squat. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out, all right, what does this individual need? What are they lacking in? And how can we apply some kind of motor learning program to where they can start to figure out how to move better? And so you'd be surprised how you can teach the exact same thing to a 10-year-old as you would to an MLB superstar. You're going to find a lot of those basic cues that are going to help them improve what they're doing. It just depends on what the goal is. Are we trying to get stronger here? Are we just trying to move better? Are we trying to coordinate your movement patterns? Whatever it is. We can work on a squat. We can work on a push-up. We can work on a pull-up, on a row, even a bicycle. It doesn't matter. There's just always a systematic way of teaching someone how to go through a movement pattern. And to some capacity, when it comes to motor learning, there is an ability to just understand, okay, if I'm going to do a bicep curl, I need to make sure that I lock in my shoulder in place so that way I'm isolating the movement to only happen from the elbow joint to be able to go up and down. Well, something that I always see in just any kind of gym and someone just doing bicep curls, you see a lot of swinging or a lot of momentum building up or not extending the arms all the way. There's all these different factors that we can start to kind of dissect and figure out, all right, how can we get the most out of this muscle? And what is the intention of it? Are we trying to get stronger? Are we trying to increase our endurance? Are we trying to work on stability? There's all these different things, and a lot of it just comes down to a cue, a simple cue. Don't move your upper body when you're going, and that might help you lock in your shoulder. Some people might respond better to hold, maybe put your hand on your shoulder and just kind of hold that and feel when you're starting to elevate and move that up and down, just to give you that feedback loop of understanding what your body is doing and how to make that little correction. And then the goal from there is just to practice it and do it with enough intense focus to where it starts to become second nature. Now you're doing bicep curls and you're locking everything in place. The same applies for a deadlift or a squat or a bench press or doing a push-up. Whatever it is, we just have to be a little bit more mindful. And so that is the approach that I take with a lot of training, especially with the kids that I work with, being, pre-high school or in high school, is just become more aware of your body, have a deeper understanding for what your body's doing, what muscles are you working. When you feel those muscles, do you feel like a burning sensation when you work out, or do you feel some kind of like throbbiness? Does it feel uncomfortable? What's the difference between the uncomfortable and then feeling discomfort, pain, all these different things, and being able to distinguish all this verbiage into different things? One, that's really good for you as an athlete because now you start to understand when you're doing something correctly and incorrectly. But then also, if you're working with someone, you're working with a coach, you're working with a trainer, you're starting to get a better understanding of how to communicate with them so they can give you the right feedback to help you correct those movement patterns. And so that's why I also am kind of circling back to the why and the how, asking that question over and over and over. Why do I have to have my form this way? How is this going to make me stronger? I don't feel as strong now. How is this going to change over time if we continue to work on this? Asking all those simple questions are huge in getting you to a better place to where you're just developing yourself as an athlete, because whatever sport you play doesn't always have to be baseball. It can be any sport. It could be weightlifting. It could be cross country. It could be playing football, soccer, fencing, tennis, whatever you want to do. Just having a better understanding for what your body's doing, it helps you make those corrections in the long run. It makes it more permanent into your brain. And so where I work at BioFit, I've had an awesome experience there, working for about half a year there now, and we have some physical therapists on staff and massage therapists. We focus on a lot of brain mapping, and so we work closely with this company called Z Health, and we go to a lot of their conference. I'm actually about to go to my first one this January, to the Essentials course, and a lot of it is just kind of understanding basic neurophysiology, understanding when we activate a certain side of our body, what part of our brain is responsible for coordinating that movement pattern, and being able to do some really simple gait assessments of watching somebody walk and looking at their tendencies, if their head is bobbling, how their hips are rotating, are they going side to side or up and down? What are their arms doing? Is one arm swinging more than the other? Is one arm more internally or externally rotated than the other? All those different things we can start to take a peek at and start to find some tendencies of how this person is moving. What is their posture like? Does it change when we load it? Does it change when we load it on one side? If we bias right-sided loading and moving with the other, we can do all these different combinations of things to help someone either get stronger or get out of pain, maybe improve their range of motion, whatever it is. There's a lot of really cool things that we get to kind of play with, and it's all within a personal training session. And so what I really admire about the place and the environment that I work at is that we have an awesome team of people. And so if I'm working with someone in one of our hour power classes and we're just working on just basic strength conditioning, trying to get in shape, getting stronger, and you find yourself that throughout this whole week, just something in your hamstring is just not doing well, maybe we can apply some muscle activation techniques. So it's as simple as hey, find a physical therapist really quick and say, hey, can you work on this person for like 2 seconds and see if like there's something that we can change with what their hamstring is feeling. Yeah, cool. Let's do some muscle activation techniques. Let's see what we can do. And then we test it out. And then they go back onto the floor to work out and they're like, wow, yeah, my hamstring feels a lot better. And so we take this very unique approach to rehab, and a lot of it is just looking at what the body's doing and looking at how it's responding to certain stimulation. And so, just to give you guys a quick little go around and tip is a lot of with neurology, with the way our body works is everything has kind of like a cross pattern with our connection to the spinal cord and to the brain. And so, for example, like any kind of feeling that I have here in my right shoulder can be correlated to my left hip. And so if I'm feeling, let's say, just a little discomfort, like, yeah, it's just kind of moving my arm right here, and like this range of motion here just doesn't feel so great. It just feels kind of stuck. Well, something that we can try is just doing a little bit of sensory work, just providing a little bit of touch around the area, around the pec, around the trap muscle, around the shoulder, all the way through the arm, around the face, pulling a little bit on the ears, just kind of creating a little bit of stimulation here, and then retest. Oh, that feels really great. To some people, it kind of seems like wizardry because it's like, oh, wow, like you just kind of touched my shoulder and all of a sudden it feels better. What did you do? And it's really just, it's more about what did your brain do? Your brain had a different sensation than what it was used to. And if your brain was craving some kind of sensory awareness of what's going on in here, all of a sudden, through the nervous system, it can start to relax some of the muscles that were creating that tension, and you find yourself moving better. Let's say that only worked a little bit or it didn't work at all. You kind of went through that and it's like, I still kind of feel the same thing. Well, then we now start to do a little bit of more motor. So now we go to that opposite hip and we can either do it standing or holding on to something. And then I'm trying to simulate right now with my legs some circles, but just moving your hip in a circle or going clockwise, counterclockwise, moving it side to side, just stimulating that ball and socket joint, sending signals to the brain to help stabilize the opposing joint. And you might go through a series of movements there, and then you retest it, and you're like, wow, my shoulder feels pretty good. That is crazy. And it's not crazy, it's just neurology. And so just to kind of share with you guys a little bit about what we do there at BioFit, and it's really cool. And then in some aspects, we just have to take it a step further to some deeper stimulation. So we can do some muscle activation techniques and maybe start to activate a little bit more of like your serratus anterior muscle, or maybe getting a little more lat activation, doing some manual therapy, or doing some soft tissue work, trying to figure out what is your body craving, what are your joints craving, what kind of pressure, what kind of stimulation. And we can go with a number of different things. We can just put a lot of pressure with our hand. We can use a band and just force holding a certain position while we move the other, biasing one-sided movements. And then we just test and retest and see how that goes. And so there's a number of other things that I'm starting to tap into. And so as we get to do more episodes and I do some more solo ones, I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of what I learned from that Essentials course in January. And a lot of what those things are just doing vestibular and ocular drills. And it can be something as simple as moving our eyes and focusing on an object like my thumb, or if you're holding a pen and moving that up and down, trying to find some tendencies to see if going diagonally or going to the right only, going to the side to side, all these different combinations of movements that we can go through, we can start to stimulate some stuff with our eyes that can help improve our balance, our coordination, our strength. Like I said, it could seem like wizardry, but it's just neurology, and we're just trying to stimulate the brain to feel safe and get some muscles activated to start functioning a little bit better. And so for baseball players, I encourage that real quick. If you're throwing and you find like your shoulder's getting a little achy, try those first two things. Providing a little bit of sensory awareness on the arm that you throw with, going all the way through the fingers, just seeing what feels good. Also pay attention to see if like there's certain spots where maybe it just feels different. For some reason, like you're touching and then there's a spot here that feels kind of like numb, or you don't feel anything, and then it feels more normal. And then you continue to test and retest, and you find that there's maybe just not a good signal coming through here. Just doing some things like that, and then just retesting, seeing, okay, that feels a little bit better. And if it doesn't, then we got to try some other things. But try that if next time that you feel some kind of pain somewhere. Remember, it's just opposing joint, shoulder to hip. If you try it out, leave it in the comments section or on the DMs on Instagram or Facebook, and let me know, see what you felt and what you experienced with that. And so to get back onto the baseball side of things, just to share with you guys. So when I started playing travel ball, had a lot of fun playing in that program with ABD, amateur baseball development, and playing through that program. Just got to be with some of the most amazing coaches ever. Shout out to Mike Spears, rest in peace. He's one of the greatest coaches I ever had in my life, and someone who just really influenced me to understand the meaning behind the word compete, disciplining us into how we carried ourselves on and off the field. At the time, I thought it was like the dumbest rule ever, but I just did it anyways. Being clean shaven, clean haircut, not wearing a hat when you're at a restaurant or if you're at the hotel, showing up to the field in athletic shoes, and all of these like tedious little rules that we had on there. Some of them just felt kind of silly at the time when you're 14, 15 years old. But as I've grown up, I've really learned to appreciate all those little rules that I thought were so dumb, and just helped me just understand what it means to be a ball player and how to carry myself on and off the field, how to work with my teammates, and how to communicate with coaches, and being in the presence of scouts and all those different things. It was just an amazing experience. And shout out as well to all the other coaches that I had. Shout out to Joe and Matt and Jose and Mike and all these other coaches that I got to play for in ABD and got some instruction with. I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything that you guys did. And that's where I'm at now with this blog and podcast. I want to be an influence to all of the young baseball players that are watching this show or reading the blogs, listening to the show, just to give you guys just someone to listen to, someone that can provide you some information. Till this day, I'm still an addict of learning new things, learning about new baseball drills, new hitting drills, new pitching drills, learning from strength coaches, new exercises, how to activate the core a little bit better, how to work on coordination, how to work on balance, how to work on speed, how to develop more strength and power, explosiveness, and all these different things. On the therapy side, like I mentioned, some things with what we do at BioFit and getting to talk to other physical therapists and doctors out there, just understanding what it means to train and being able to provide that information to you guys, whether if you're a trainer, if you are an athlete, if you're a parent, if you're a coach, just to give you guys some awesome content to just follow and learn more about what it means to be an athlete and how to work with athletes. And so just want to give a huge thank you to all the listeners and followers and everyone who's tuned into the blog and podcast from the very beginning. And if this is your first one, thank you for watching and listening. We have an Instagram page at MoBaseballAndTraining. You can find it on Facebook as well. The website, MoBaseballAndTraining.com. You can find all the blog content on there, the podcasts, and some other neat stuff that I posted up there. And just trying to be more active on the social media front, posting on my Instagram story and just asking questions or sharing quotes. If I find a cool video or just a quote from a trainer that I follow, and just screenshot and put it up there. It's all about just sharing free content and kind of spiking a little bit of that learning mindset of what you want to get better at. And that's for everyone, not just athletes, for personal training people, general population, people who are just trying to train and work out and get in shape. And whether if it's losing weight or if it's, being healthier to play with the kids, doesn't matter. A lot of the principles all kind of apply despite the name, baseball and training. We want to focus on a lot of baseball, but I still want to share with you guys just a lot of just other basic training kind of stuff that can hopefully help you or help you have a conversation with someone else that may be struggling with pain or might be struggling with working out, trying to get in shape. Athletes that are trying to develop and become better and get to that next level, whatever that is, if it's getting to high school, playing college ball or pro ball, whatever that is, just providing you guys some of that information and hopefully help you get to a better place to compete and do what you want to do. And so thank you for listening. And this show is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher and all the other major streaming platforms. You can find the video format on YouTube, and I am getting better with the video editing. So with a lot of shows that I'll be doing, I'm going to be putting in some videos that kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about or what my guest is talking about, just to give you a little bit more visual of what is going on. And whether if it's a training movement pattern, if it's a baseball hitting or throwing movement pattern, whatever it is, just to kind of give you guys some insight on what we're doing there. And so thanks for watching and listening. And this concludes episode 3.
When you dip, watch me die, hard to care, hard to try. Truth be told, you let me write your fate. Other than when you dip, watch me die.